Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Richmond North and South Community Conversations. My name is Catherine Williamson, and I'm the Director of Richmond CVS. Richmond CVS is a charity which supports voluntary and community groups in Richmond, helping them to thrive and do all their fantastic work in the borough. We particularly work with groups around helping them obtain funding, and we also help them to recruit volunteers. We've been running a very successful volunteer programme over the last 18 months in connection with the COVID response programme. If you want to find out more information about us, you can do so via our website, and I'll put those details into the chat. But I'm really pleased to welcome you here this evening as part of the Council's engagement programme. Community Conversations enable residents and businesses to have an opportunity to meet their local ward councillors and to have their say on matters, what matters to them locally and on specific issues via a series of themed conversations. There have been quite a few of these over the past few years, probably around 20 or so, which gives you a chance to hear from local councillors and express your views. Obviously, due to COVID-19, we're not able to hold the events in person at the moment, so we are doing them virtually. We've covered a various range of topics over the last year or so, including coronavirus, community safety, environmental issues and education. And now the focus for the next series of discussions is on the future of our high streets, and that is what we will be focusing on tonight. And so, as well as a chance to speak to your local ward councillors, we will also be hearing from a special speaker. So I'm now going to just introduce the councillors to you. We have the full 6 councillors from the 2 wards, North Richmond and South Richmond. For North Richmond, we have Councillor Nancy Baldwin, Councillor Richard Pine and Councillor Richard Warren. For South Richmond, we have Councillor Pamela Fleming, Councillor Peter Buckwell and Councillor Bill Newton-Dunn. You will have a chance to hear from them in a moment for a local ward update, but I would also like to mention who else is with us this evening. I'm really pleased that we have Councillor Richard Baker with us. He is the lead member for economics and business, and of course, very much leading the programme around the future of our high streets. We have a special speaker, as I've mentioned, who is Paul Clement, and he will be leading us through the main topic that we are focusing on tonight. We do also have a range of council officers supporting the discussions this evening, and they will be with you in the breakout sessions and writing up notes and actions afterwards. So I now need to read out some guidance to you so we all know what we're doing this evening. This event is being recorded, as you probably know, and will be published afterwards on the council website. All the attendees are muted, and if you do wish to speak, please write the word question and then the subject matter in the chat. There's no need to write the full question. If you write question and say the topic such as graffiti, when I say your name, you will be unmuted by the communications team that's supporting this event, and then you'll have the chance to ask your question. I do suggest that if possible, you can turn on your camera, please, when you're asking your question so that we can see you. If during the conversation you do have a point or a question about a similar theme that you'd like to talk about, then please use the hand tool to signal to me that you would like to add something. This hopefully will mean that when we get to the question and answer stage, we can group questions together. You're welcome to use the chat to share your views throughout the discussion, and we'll try and bring in those points as we can. Obviously, all the attendees have been sent the event etiquette in advance, reminding you of the need to be respectful of other speakers, and I'm sure we won't need to, but obviously we're keen to avoid anyone putting anything they shouldn't in the chat or being disrespectful in any way. And if such a situation was to arise, you will be asked to leave and have a discussion with one of the event staff in a separate chat room. After the event, attendees will be emailed the email addresses of all local representatives and the web links that we've discussed in the meeting, so you don't need to worry about writing things down that are mentioned. I think just to make sure everyone is clear of the agenda, I'll just run through that very quickly. In a moment, I'm going to go to the councillors for a local update. Then at about 6:45, I will introduce our main speaker, who will lead us through the main topic about discussing the future of our high streets. You will then have a chance to go into breakout rooms to have discussions on the topic, and then we'll come back for feedback of main points from those discussions. And then for the last 20 minutes or so, we will have a sort of open community conversation where you will have a chance to ask any questions on any subjects that relate to your local area to the ward councillors. And I will help to facilitate that discussion. Right, I think without further ado, I am going to ask the councillors to give their update. And first of all, for South Richmond, we are going to Councillor Fleming, and then we'll ask Councillor Newton-Dunn to speak. So Councillor Fleming, over to you.
Thank you very much. And it's good to see you as our chair again. Thank you, Catherine. Yes, so I will start with the very sad, tragic death of Tim Hipperson, and condolences to his family, who was stabbed in the Kings Road area last month. It was the middle of the afternoon and children were returning from school. And in fact, our South Richmond Ward Safer Neighbourhood team were on the scene very, very swiftly. But understandably, people have been shocked and saddened that such a thing could happen in Richmond and in a quiet residential area. 3 people have been arrested, but as it's a murder investigation, there's really no more I can say. But it has prompted a resident to launch a petition calling for the reopening of Richmond Police Station. Well, of course, that can't happen because they've both been sold and developed. But, you know, as ward councillors, the 3 of us have been pressing for a base in South Richmond for a long time now. And I'm glad to see that our GLA member, our new GLA member, questioned the mayor about this. And as a result, there is going to be a meeting with the mayor's policing commissioner. So we finally got our temporary toilets on the Green and Riverside with a lot of help from the Richmond Society and Friends of Richmond Green. And whilst I know the locations aren't ideal, the facilities are much needed. But I must say that the public toilet review, there doesn't seem to have been any news on that, and time's ticking on if we want something in place for next summer. The working group that was set up by the police liaison group after all the outbreaks of antisocial behaviour on the Green and Riverside last summer has produced an action plan, and the council and the police have both agreed to put in additional resources, which is great. And so far, we don't seem to have had any particular issues. There were 1 or 2 rather nasty ones at the beginning, but it seems to have worked quite smoothly. But of course, we've had pretty awful weather. So we will actually have to continue to see how that works. But Richmond's not a sleepy town. It's got an active business community, lively nighttime economy. And once again, we need that visible presence, police presence all the year round. So again, ward councillors have been pressing for a dedicated Richmond Town Centre police team. Delighted to see that Richmond's all fully open again with the shops. And the ward councillors, we all supported Be Richmond, the bid, with a litter pick to make sure it was looking at its best for the visitors. I'm really glad to see that the Orange Tree Theatre is open again. I think, you know, we have lost shops and businesses, but there are also some new ones, and it's probably true, well, it's absolutely true to say that's not all of the loss is due to the pandemic, because we know that some of the big brands, bring names like Carphone Warehouse and Topshop, had already indicated, this was part of central policy, indicated they were going to leave the town before the pandemic. I think then we also want to add that there is a pilot of e-scooters that's lasting for 12 months. I know we've already got some complaints, but there's also going to be e-bikes ride. Then for the last 4 years, there's been some a lot of work going on with the council, community groups and councillors looking at improvements for Richmond Town Centre. I think that there's now going to be a consultation on some of these fairly soon, but it's a bit too early to say what these will be. I hope that leaves enough time for Bill to say something and keep us in our time limit. Thank you. You're on mute.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. I support everything that Pamela has just said. We work as a very tight, uniform team as the three councillors, although we're from different parties in South Richmond. Just three things to say. Of course, a community conversation is a good idea, but you'll see at the bottom of the screen, there are only 58 people on this call. And before we started and opened it to the public, there were already 24. So we've only actually got 34 members of the public. Thank you for coming out of 10,000 voters. So something is wrong with this system. And before we try another of these things, we ought to try a better way to get the public to actually know about it and join in. Second point, Richard Pine, the councillor on our screens here, will probably want to join in. He and I take a particular interest in the museum. In Richmond, we have a fabulous little museum with lots of treasures, but it is hidden away in the old town hall, almost inaccessible to the public. And yet Richard and I have recently heard a survey done by the museum to show that it has a positive economic effect on Richmond. People come to Richmond to seek out the museum. So therefore, one of the recommendations of this evening's discussion, I hope, would be that we should find a place for the museum in one of the empty shop fronts. And that would mean many, many more people would say, what a wonderful museum Richmond has got, and spread the word, and more people would come, because we're not making the most of a super little asset that we have. We're hiding it away, and it's insane. Third point, my final very short point, as you can see from my backdrop, I'm actually in Gloucester at the moment. On a walking holiday, and yesterday walking around Gloucester, I'm sorry to say they have the same problems as Richmond. Lots of empty shops and boarded up shop fronts and countless coffee bars. So although we're discussing a very important subject for our town, this is actually a much bigger picture, and let's hope the consultants can actually come up with a solution. But I think we've got a very big problem on our hands.
Thank you, Councillor Newton-Dunn, and thank you, Councillor Fleming, for the updates there. We will come back to some of those points, I'm sure, in the open discussion part of the evening. And indeed, Museum Richmond were recruiting at our volunteer event last week, and indeed they do fantastic work, and we all want to see their profile raised. But thank you. Right, now handing over to Councillor Warren for a quick update from North Richmond.
Thank you. Well, the big news in North Richmond continues to be the development plans for the Homebase Manor Road scheme. Mayor Khan was meant to have signed off on the application in January, but we have learned in the past few days that he's now reconsidering some aspects of the proposals. This welcome turn of events is partly to take account of changes in his London plan published earlier this year, but also because of lobbying by all of us. We understand that Sadiq Khan now agrees with us that the public transport accessibility levels for North Sheen were overstated. Whether this will lead to a reduction in the height and massing of the development, or possibly increased funding for public transport, or nothing at all, we do not know. We do believe that an urban scale development is not appropriate for a suburban area with suburban levels of transport provision, and have reminded him of that. Also, our criticism that the application included insufficient social rental housing appears to have resonated, because we understand the mayor is now wants to increase this type of tenure at the development at the expense of other less affordable homes. It is worth reminding ourselves that social housing tenants are the least likely to own a car, as we pointed out to the mayor at last October's hearing. So are the most likely to help reduce the number of cars associated with this development. To help remind the mayor of North Richmond's opposition to the developers' proposals, we are running a petition that we will share with him later next week. So far, we have nearly 1,700 signatures. Another planning controversy: together with residents, we successfully objected to plans to double the height of London House, the disused office block next to Manor Circus, because the resulting structure would have loomed over homes on Rowley Road in particular, cutting out light and intruding on privacy. At Kew Road, we have been working with the Old Deer Park Sports Ground Limited, the Community Payback Scheme and local environment charity Habitats and Heritage to start clearing the ha-ha that runs alongside the road up to Lions Gate, so that a B corridor can be created. Clearance work starts on Friday. Also in Kew Road, we continue to press for effective flood reduction measures. Work continues on developing the Friends of Raleigh Road Recreation Ground group, and we are looking to set up additional Friends groups in the ward. If anyone is interested, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Warren. And just a reminder to everyone, all the relevant contact details will be sent out to you afterwards. Thank you to those who are putting questions in the chat. We will come back to that at the end for the Q&A section. But now I am going to hand over to our main speaker for this evening, Paul Clement, who is going to lead us through the next section of the agenda around the future of our high streets. And Paul, you have until 20 to 8 for this session, so over to you.
So, Catherine, thank you very much. No pressure there then. Thank you very much for your warm welcome. Thank you, councillors, for inviting me to facilitate this as the sort of honest broker, if you like. I'm somebody that knows Richmond and knows the area extremely well. I left Savills as their head of place at the end of December, and some of you may have joined the partnership conference where I talked a bit about what is going on Britain's high streets. So the next couple of 3 minutes, I just want to try and contextualize the conversations that I'm then going to ask you to have in groups. So let's start off with the blatantly obvious. In fact, Councillor Newton-Dunn hinted at this earlier. What is happening in Richmond, and it's massive change, I accept that, is actually happening on virtually every high street in the UK. So conversations like this are happening throughout the country, but where you are at an advantage now as a resident community is you're being asked to engage in that conversation at a very, very early stage. The second thing is that although COVID has been utterly devastating for our local communities, there's no question about that, I do not sign up to the "it has forced the change that is happening in Richmond and in other places." It may have accelerated the change, but let's be perfectly honest, some of the businesses that we've seen leave our high streets, Debenhams, Topshop, they would have gone anyway. Their departure may have been accelerated by COVID, but that change was really underway. But what have we learned through what's happened over the last 15 months? Well, I think it's fair to say that we've reconnected with our local far more than we did before. We found it really, really matters to us. We value our community rather more than we ever did. Some of us, if we're honest, may not have known our neighbours before last March terribly well, and yet there we were on a Thursday night clapping the NHS together as if we had been best friends to years. There is something about this community and localism. We want to support the local. We want our town centres to do well. And actually, we may be less inclined to travel as much as we did in the past, particularly overseas. And so staying more local is possibly going to be a trend that will continue. The third thing is that in these kind of cycles historically, retail has always replaced retail that has disappeared. Now, I think we need to agree that's not going to happen this time. What's going on is deeply structural. It is really big long-term change, and it's changed forever. So we can't expect the economy just to resolve the issues that are happening on our high streets. Cost of occupation for retailers, more of us buying online, out-of-town shopping centres, and a range of other factors mean that the retail spaces we see now may have to be filled by something rather different. And I was interested in the councillor's view of the museum. There is a classic example. The other thing is our working habits are going to change. So whereas at the moment we are still partly restricted, with government advice being at the moment work from home if you can, eventually that advice will lift. But will everybody go back to their desks in the way that they were 15 months ago? Personally, I doubt it. I don't necessarily sign up to the view that we will all be working from home forever. I think the social and productivity side of being in an office will come back to the fore, but we're likely to find people will more hybrid work. Now, actually, for your location, that may mean more people each day are in your locality because they're travelling into central London less than they may otherwise have done. So there may be an opportunity there. The next thing is that the identity of place really matters. Do you remember all of these multiple retailers that, irrespective of whether they took a brand new modern shop or a listed building, stuck their own retail facade in front of us and every single unit looked exactly the same? Well, now the difference of place, what makes your place unique, is going to matter much, much more, because the local is more about what you are committed to. And then I'm not here to stand up for the council. I'm entirely neutral, but I do want to be honest with everybody and say your council, no council, can solve all these problems on their own. In fact, to be honest, property owners probably have more say than local authorities. But where your local authority can intervene is that they are crucial to the future. They can demonstrate leadership. They can bring people together. They can gain consensus. They can set out a set of plans. They can convene discussions. But this is about you, the residents, that can start to really now contribute. So where did we start off? We started off in a partnership conference, and some of the themes that came through from that, you might want to just hold in your head as we move forward in this session. So one theme, the town centre needs to be more of a destination, less transactional. I don't just want to go there and buy stuff. I want to feel that I can go there for an experience that makes it really different to just buying stuff online. Theme number one. Theme number two, our centres need to be less about business, less about transaction, less about profit and loss, and much more about people. We want to live locally. We want our town centres to feel different in order to encourage us to do that. Theme number two. Number three, we wanted our town centres to be more balanced, less about retail, and bring in some other uses alongside as well. And as we get vacant units, don't just think that vacant unit will be retail in the future. Number four, we want to be creative about the way we plan our town centres. We think, or the conference said, we think we can hold a plan and we can deliver it and businesses will fit around it. So let's be really creative about how we do that. And then the final theme that came through was, we can't say that come to our town centre if it's not digitalised. We need to be able to transact using our phone, using our smart device in a different way. And that can lead to a totally different experience of our town centre than we've ever had before. And that was seen as an opportunity. So some of the themes that came through there were, A, very interesting. Secondly, partly help the discussion tonight. But there was an atmosphere to that conference that I want to continue with tonight, which was, it was really positive. It was incredibly constructive. There was a very broad range of discussion. And in fact, one person said, I left the conference really wanting to engage more. So the rules of engagement tonight are, of course, have your say. Of course, we know there are things in your town centre and on your high street that need improvement. Of course, there are some things that are just not good enough. But this is about looking forward, and it's about looking forward positively. So we want to capture that positivity again as we dig down more into the detail. Now, the questions that we're going to set you, and I'll remind you of these before we set into the breakout room, are three. So if you've got a pen and paper, list them down. If not, try and memorise them. The first question we're going to ask you in your groups to deal with is, we want to understand how you use your town centre. How often do you go there? What do you use it for? Do you now use it less frequently, more frequently? How do you get there? Do you use it in the evening compared to the day? And when you visit, what do you go for? So use. The second question, we want to know where you think the town centre should be improved, or your town centre, your high street should be improved. Now, you might say, I'm 100% happy. I don't think anything needs to be done. That's fine. But if you do want to see stuff done, what is it? More green spaces, different shops, more leisure, amenities, cycle lanes, more events. So what do you want to see on your high street? And then the third one that's the most challenging, but is the one where there's no limit, is give us some ideas. Give us some ideas that would really improve the high street, but don't think managerial, parochial and limited. Really, really step back and blue sky think. So before we move into the breakout rooms, I think we've got an introduction into the local plan, which features as part of this, and I'm handing over to Grace.
Hi everyone, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. That's showing okay? Yeah, great. So good evening everyone. My name is Grace and I'm here from Richmond's planning policy team to give a very quick overview of the local plan, the development process that we're currently going through and what that means for your local area. And apologies if you can hear a car siren in the background, it's just gone off, my window's open. So the planning policy team are the team within the council that produces the local plan. And we work with other council departments to help inform our planning decisions and explore things like the impact of new developments. So we don't only undertake this process internally. At several stages, we'll be talking to you as the community, inviting our local stakeholders to feed into this process as you are knowledgeable in your areas. So although there are many things that are outside of council control, we work with landlords and landowners to influence future development, although factors like high land value, high demand for certain uses and climate priorities also influence plan making. So the local plan, for those of you who don't know, is a legal document that's produced by each local authority in England. Essentially, it's a set of guidelines that lay out our vision and objectives for the borough. A plan is often produced once every 10 years and typically reviewed every 5. Although in Richmond, we decided that the next review should commence sooner to better reflect some of the issues that are very important at the moment, such as the climate emergency, changes to central planning policy, including responding to the new local plan and its ambitious housing target that was published recently. So to try and make this a bit clearer, so the local plan does not always adopt policies that are popular or fall in line with individual interests, but it aims to balance the needs of all members of society and users of places. So for example, rather than dictate or operate specific jobs, services or community facilities, the plan aims to create the conditions for those services to thrive. So the local plan does ensure that we're thinking long term, that we are placing developments in the most appropriate places, shaping how places look and feel, and influencing how we travel. It does not do things like cap property prices or rents, resist change shops, control where people park, or control things like how often waste and recycling is collected. So to give an example about what some of this policy might look like in daily life, I wanted to mention the 15 to 20 minute neighbourhood concept. So this is the idea that our places should be complete, compact and connected neighbourhoods, where most things you need for shopping or visiting are an easy walk or cycle away. So for many, the pandemic has really highlighted the benefits of living locally and being able to access things you need without making long journeys. So as well as the 5 largest centres in Richmond, there are also around 30 local neighbourhood centres and parades across the borough, which are really important for top-up shopping, especially for those who are less mobile or don't have access to a car. Going forward, we need to make sure that our centres continue to be successful, distinctive places that can adapt to change. For example, changes in the retail sector and the way we shop, or from new use class legislation. So we also know that each area is different and has its own unique challenges and opportunities. And we also know that you know your centres very well. So we're really keen to hear your thoughts on this to help us shape the new local plan, and very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts this evening. So this slide is meant to give a brief overview of the development process for the plan. I won't go into details, but you can see from this that the process of developing a plan takes quite a long time, and it builds up weight as we go through the journey. So the council has also commissioned a new set of research or local plan evidence to inform the plan. This includes a review of our open land designations, an urban design study to help us understand where the borough's constraints and realistic capacity for growth are, as well as research that helps anticipate our future need for housing, retail, leisure facilities, and support for businesses. And just to conclude with our vision, so we're setting out a long-term vision for Richmond, which is looking up to about 15 years in the future and beyond, that reflects some of the challenges we've all experienced over the past 15 months, and works to support our high streets and local centres to deliver for the community. We want to build on our borough's strengths as a place with strong arts, culture and leisure facilities that are really enhanced by the unique presence of the Riverside. And we want to continue to work with you and our communities and local partners to ensure this vision is developed in a way that we can all agree on. Okay. Thank you, and I'll hand back to Paul.
Thank you, Grace. So what we now know, and I saw on your timeline there, that the summer of 2021 is the period where you consult with residents and local stakeholders that will inform that long-term strategic document that will take us for the next 15 years or so. So these conversations that we're having now really, really matter, and the results of which will be embedded in those plans as far as you are able. So before I show a brief video and then, as if by magic, send you into breakout rooms where you'll start to discuss, let me remind you again of the 3 questions that we want the discussion to be around. First of all, your use of the town centre. How's it changed? Do you go there more or less frequently? How do you get there? What do you use it for? Do you use it in the evening? And when you visit, what do you really enjoy? The second, what would you like to see to improve your high street? You might be 100% happy. I mean, nothing might be improved. However, do you want more green spaces, different shops, more leisure, more amenities, more cycle lanes, more events, or whatever it is that you conclude? And then the third one, that's the trickiest, but the boundaries get removed so you can really think outside the box, is what's your great idea for your high street? Think big, feel free to think, and blue sky think as you go. So you don't need to do anything as residents. You sit tight. We're going to move you into some breakout rooms, and then we'll bring you back in about half an hour's time. But before we do, we're going to show you a brief video that should help the discussions you're about to have. Enjoy those discussions.
I came here by bus. I live in Ealing, so it's a short trip, and I come here pretty frequently, mainly for nature and for some things in the town centre. And when it was happening, the theatre too.
It's good for me for travelling because I come from London, but I've just finished a night shift, and I've come here because it's easier, and then I get the bus to Teddington.
I hope they pedestrianise it. I really do, because it's a great place to shop. You've got loads of bars, cafes, decent supermarkets.
The COVID has impacted my business tremendously. That's been a hard thing for me, but I'm trying to keep positive. But we need to reorganise the centre and make this more vibrant and appealing for people to come.
I think a change that was underway already is that Richmond was becoming less a town centre that needed or wanted big chains, and a place that sort of capitalised really on people's traditional idea of it as a centre with character. And I think with a lot of the empty shops now, it would be wonderful to feel, if planning regulations were to relax a little bit, that there would be more independent shops and cafes and restaurants and art galleries that offered a more of a sort of rich mixed experience for people coming into Richmond.
Right, okay, listen, welcome back everybody. Thank you for all you've contributed. I visited each room very briefly, and I now have reminded myself why I just love doing this sort of stuff, because some of the ideas were amazing. Right, in a minute, can I try and give you some of the feedback from some of the other groups? There was a lot of overlap, by the way. So, what's great about Richmond, it's convenient, it's close to London. You like the fact that it doesn't change that much. You're a bit concerned about antisocial behaviour and safety, and the theme that came in all 6 groups was more independent businesses, more flexibility for independent businesses, more local produce, and give them the ability to trade successfully, okay? You are using it more than you used to. You're using it even in the evening more than you used to, but it would be nice, wouldn't it, if some of the open spaces had live music. One of the great ideas I heard actually in group 2, I think it was why don't we have a concert hall or a bandstand on the green? The farmers market, it's good, could be a load better, but make sure it sells local produce. And lots and lots and lots of people saying you've got to make cycling the easiest thing to do in Richmond. And if I leave my bike in Richmond, you have to give me an assurance it will be there when I get back. It's got to be 100% safe. Lots of talk about rebalancing the relationship between the car and the pedestrian, not necessarily full pedestrianisation. Lots of talk about greening and open spaces and places to browse. Bring back butchers and fishmongers, I heard. Give me a town centre in which I can have fun, but I want to sit down as well, and I want to rest, and I want to spend longer there than perhaps I have in the past. On top of the House of Fraser building, I'm coming as soon as I'm allowed to, because you're going to put a high level bar in there. The councillor got his way. Let's move the museum and put that somewhere much more sensible. But I'll give you, before I hand back to Catherine, the quote of the evening. Here is your marketing message for Richmond. Somebody said, "I just want to let my town centre breathe again." There's your town centre. Catherine, over to you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that great summary. And thank you again to everyone who contributed to the discussion groups. Right, we are now going to move on to the open session of Q&A for the evening. I'm just conscious we've lost a bit of time, so we may end up overrunning by about up to 5 minutes, depending on the number of questions asked. I'm keen that you do have a chance to have your say if you've been waiting patiently. So just to say, a reminder that if you do have to leave promptly at 8, all materials from this evening will be sent out to those who've registered. So I'm going to go back to the first question I remember seeing in the chat, which I believe was from Barry May, and apparently it's about loos. So Barry, I think you'll be unmuted and you can ask your question. We've got the councillors here and also council officers if they need to input on anything.
Thank you, Catherine. Before I go on to that, I would say that there are 2 issues of main concern to community groups and residents: the absence of a permanent police base in Richmond since the closure of the police station in December 2017, and the lack of adequate public lavatories for residents and visitors alike. And I don't think this was touched on in the breakout rooms, but if we're going to try to encourage people to come back to Richmond, visitors especially, then we've got to provide loos. I know that the council member and the member of parliament are engaged with the central government and the Metropolitan Police on the matter of a police base, so I won't touch on that myself now. I did ask a question of the council's Finance, Policy and Resources Committee when it met last month, and I received a written reply from the leader in which he mentioned the very high cost, those are his words, very high cost of providing temporary lavatories on Richmond Green and the Riverside. I would like to know, and I recognise that our councillors on this call tonight may not be able to answer this, but I'd like to know, what is that cost? How much has been spent on these temporary loos? How much more is expected to be spent on them during the summer holidays? And how does this compare with the cost of providing permanent facilities, which the council, I know, is discussing with businesses in Richmond for a potential private sector contribution? What projects are ahead of public loos in the queue for council funds?
Thank you, Barry.
I'd like to hand that one over to Councillor Fleming, if I may, because she's done all the work on it.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I can't I can't now give you the cost. You know, without looking, I really can't give you the actual cost right now of the temporary toilets. But you're absolutely right. I mean, they are extremely expensive because they are good quality, and it is quite ridiculous that we're paying this sort of amount out in temporary toilets when there should actually be permanent provision, because it's needed all the year round anyway. It's not just needed in the summer. Now, as you know, Barry, we've been promised a review of public toilets, and we've all been promised that we will be able to make a contribution to this. But so far, apart from my understanding is that there are conversations with the Business Improvement District, which is great. But what we don't know is, of course, whether the Business Improvement District will still be here next year. I do hope it will be, but they have to reballot next year. So, you know, this is a matter that the council really can't duck. We've got to look at this public toilet provision, because the community toilet scheme, there isn't a single community toilet business offering community toilets at the moment in Richmond. And if we're going to attract visitors and all the great things that we've been talking about, we need that. But as for the cost of the temporary toilets, it's ridiculous the council spending that when we should be making sure that they don't have to spend it next summer and have proper public toilet facilities that, you know, everybody knows where they are.
We happen to have Councillor Needham Watts in the meeting. I don't know, would it be appropriate for her to, since this is her committee that deals with this, I don't know if that would be helpful.
Happy with that? Yes.
Okay, well, thank you. I was attending very much as a resident just over the river, very much interested in everyone's views on Richmond, but and thank you, Pamela's outlined it fairly well. I think the thing with the temporary toilets for this summer was something was needed. We needed something sanitary, something we could control, something that would be a presence on the green, the riverside, and that we would review it as time went on. It takes time to find a location that's suitable for permanent toilets that also need to be sanitary. We need to look after them. Sadly, we find that toilet units are very easily vandalized. Again, there's a cost in putting right any damage done through vandalism. But it is being taken seriously. I also don't want to be in a position next summer when we're having to authorise the expenditure on temporary toilets on the green. There are many strands to toilet provision. One of them, which is important, is that as businesses open up, they take part in allowing their customers to use toilets in their facilities, which is part of your experience of going out to eat or to shop. That, you know, that's where the toilet is. Nonetheless, all those things are true, but I agree that a permanent, civilised, clean, sanitary toilet provision is required in Richmond Town Centre. You're right that the temporary toilets have been a consideration for the Environment Committee, but that the more permanent provision is being undertaken in partnership with the BID, and this is something that will be undertaken by the Finance Committee. I think Barry referred to asking a question at that committee relatively recently, and the leader has been in touch on that. I'm happy to take this up again with the leader of the council. I support, you know, I hear your concerns, and yes, a good toilet provision is part of a civilised shopping experience or any visit to a town centre. The same applies in Twickenham and other parts of the borough. So yes, I hope that covers your concerns. It's not been forgotten about, it's been taken very seriously.
The concern here, Councillor, is that another year has passed by, or will have passed by, with only at the best temporary facilities, which are not wholly adequate, and that will come to an end. Come the autumn, I suppose they'll go away, but the visitors don't go away.
No, so that will be the situation returning, we hope, as businesses open up again to what we had before the pandemic, and we will re-engage with businesses about the community toilet scheme. I'm just going to repeat the same things I've said, that I agree with you for the need for permanent provision, and that message is heard loud and clear.
But I think it was it Nancy who said, or maybe it was Pamela, that no businesses have signed up for the community toilet scheme whatsoever.
Well, there are businesses who participate in the community toilet scheme. So.
But not in the centre of Richmond, unless somebody signed up in the last month, because there certainly weren't any in the centre of Richmond.
Yeah, and balanced against that, you have a temporary toilet provision, high quality temporary toilet provision.
Sure. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Needham Watts, for coming in on that. I'm going to move us on from toilets. I think Barry, you also mentioned about the police station. We did have a discussion about that earlier. Obviously, it has closed, but I know that has come up in some of the discussions, so I think that will also be noted. But I'm just going to move us on now to another question. Rebecca Morse, you wanted to ask a question about the museum or a comment on that?
Yeah. Hello. Yes. I like the museum very much, and I think the building it's in is beautiful. I think it would be a shame to move it out of that building and put it in a shop. I think if the worry is that people don't know it's there, then there are other solutions for that. Yeah, I think it's there are a lot of things, a lot of really positive, good things about Richmond, and I think change, there are a lot of practical things that we need, but change for change's sake is not really helpful.
Thanks, Rebecca. I don't know if anyone wants to come back on that. I know you made a similar comment in the discussion group about the fantastic building, and I think you're right, it's about sometimes raising the profile of places, but I don't know if any of the local councillors want to comment on that at all before we move on.
I could chip in and say that, as a trustee of the museum, one of our frustrations is that, one, it's a beautiful building, but a lot of people don't know it's there. And secondly, the museum is a bit inaccessible, being on the 3rd floor with a lift that persistently breaks down. So a possibility, we are looking at the possibility of relocating the museum either within that building or possibly into a new facility somewhere in the centre of town, because it's a big asset and it's considerably underused. And we know by doing surveys that large numbers of people who live in Richmond don't even know that the museum exists. So it's got to be part of the solution to this issue, but how it fits in, I'm not sure.
And if I could just add to that, they don't have enough space to display a lot of the things that they have. And I see their frustration. They were very kind about my COVID quilt that I did with the community when I was mayor. But that's going to have to come down in 6 months because they need the space to show something else. So, it's finding the right thing. But I hear what you're saying. It is a beautiful building. I do think it needs to be advertised more.
Thank you very much. Right, moving on. We had a comment in the chat regarding some flooding. Gwyneth Hutchings was commenting on flooding in Kew Road and the fact that she has contacted the council and TfL about that, feeling nothing's changed. Now, I know Councillor Baldwin, you commented, you hear her as such. I don't know if there's...
Oh, yeah, but I'm going to defer to Councillor Warren, who's been doing battle about this more than I have even, but it is a constant battle. Richard, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just add actually that I have actually been contacting the council about Church Road as well, which is where I live. So I see it outside my own window, to be honest with you, when it happens. So it's very easy for me to report it in. But it is a problem at the moment. The system is that we have they're called gully suckers, and they go around and suck out the drains of any debris that's blocking them up and so forth. But they do that on a reactive basis. I think quite a few of us now in the council believe it ought to be proactive. They just go around on a regular basis and just keep the gullies clean. There is another issue, and that is Thames Water. We've been told by engineers that actually, council engineers, the problem is with capacity on the Thames water network. That's particularly the case with Kew Road. But they come back and say, no, our capacity is fine. The problem is with the council. So there's this kind of backwards and forwards. And as Gwyneth pointed out, TfL are actually responsible for Lower Mortlake Road. So all we can do there is simply go to TfL and say, there's flooding, please can you sort it out? Which we do as well, but we have less control over that. But yeah, no, absolutely, I hear you. It's a definite problem that keeps recurring, and with I'm going to sound sensational now, but with climate change, we are expecting and experiencing whether that is a little more extreme than we might have experienced in the past. You know, when we get rain now, it is often an incredible deluge. And, you know, the system, you know, wasn't built for that. So we do need to start thinking about these things and dealing with the problem flooding, I think, more proactively. And I know a lot of other councillors do too. It's a question of how we make that happen. There's a funding issue and all sorts of other things, you know.
And if I could add one thing for Gwyneth, because I know she's a very keen cyclist, and this is part of the reason, who likes to cycle through basically a lake, is right now, because of emergency measures, we have done the best cycle lane that we could for the money that we had and the time that we had. But I know that we are working on having separate cycle lanes in the sense of a slightly raised one, and hopefully that's not too far down the line, and because that's our ideal and that's what we would like to, and hopefully that will go some way to helping these things as well. But in the meantime, we're dealing with TfL and Thames Water, and it's very difficult.
You're muted.
So, right, moving on. Now, Grace, you put a question in the chat saying that a question came up in your discussion group that you wanted to put to your planning colleagues. I'm thinking whether that's something you want to sort of raise now around how much can we offer incentives like reduced rents to encourage certain shops to come to Richmond. I know that sort of has come up before in the partnership conference. I don't know whether there's anyone who can comment on that now, because I think it might be a topical thing with the discussion this evening.
Well, we can't offer reduced rents because we don't own the shops. So
right. So it's ways that, yes, it's around talking to the landlords and things, but it comes up as a challenge. Right. Okay. So nothing easy to solve there. That's fine. Right, just running through. I'm conscious of the time, so I think we will be drawing things to a close shortly. Thank you for the comments coming in. Some of them relate to the earlier discussion around loos. The comments I know will be recorded that are being put into chat, so it won't be lost. Eleanor Broad was asking, I think one of her questions was around, did relate to, I think, the toilet discussion about it relating to the BID, the Business Improvement District. But I noticed there's another question at the end, Eleanor. I don't know whether this is something you were asking to someone specifically around what would make you cycle more. Is there anything you wanted to say around that, Eleanor Broad?
No, sorry, that was actually a mistake. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Although I'm very happy to discuss cycling because, you know, but I don't think we need to now. So that was a mistake.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Can I just answer a quick thing? What would make me cycle more is being a better cyclist. And I know the council has reopened their cycling lessons, so I'm going to do that.
I'll do it with you, Nancy.
We'll go together, Pam.
Well, this sounds like a great initiative to get people more active. There are lots of benefits there. It's green travel, it's getting you more active, getting you out in the fresh air, and also mixing with other people as well at a safe distance. That sounds like a very positive thing. So look forward to seeing that. Lovely. Okay, there are no other actual questions in the chat now, so I think we are getting to the point of drawing things to a close. Thank you for the comments, and also from Julie, who was commenting about the need to advertise more around things like the museum. I think they're definitely things that can be taken forward. I would like to thank all of our speakers this evening, particularly Paul Clement, who's our special speaker talking about the future of our high streets. It was really, really helpful to hear from you and leading the discussion. So thank you for that. And thank you to all our councillors. I don't know if there were any closing remarks any of you wanted to make very briefly. No, that's fine. It wasn't planned. I was just giving you that chance.
Just keep emailing us. You got a problem, email us.
I think that's the thing. Yes, definitely appreciate it's been quite a quick whistle-stop tour this evening of various issues. As mentioned before, all the email addresses of councillors' contacts will be sent out to attendees. So do feel you can carry on the conversation, and there will be follow-up. So thank you to all the councillors for attending this evening. Also to all the council officers. I know that there have been a lot of people involved in this call behind the back office as such, and those who have been scribing in the discussion sessions and who led the discussion sessions. discussions. So thank you to all of them for their help, but most importantly, thank you to all our attendees. It's really good that residents and people from local businesses want to take part in these discussions. I appreciate there are a lot of distractions for your time on a summer's evening, especially when there's the football going on. But it's really good that you have taken the time to take part in these discussions. So thank you very much. I hope you found it interesting, and we look forward to continuing the conversation about how we develop our high streets to ensure they thrive in the future. This is very much a continuing conversation, so you will be hearing more. But thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.